A bipartisan group of senators is taking on the CFTC and prediction markets with new legislation. The Prediction Markets Are Gambling Act aims to clarify commodity markets are not casinos, in their words, and would officially ban sports-style betting. Joining us right now are the authors of the legislation, Democratic Senator Adam Schiff and Republican Senator John Curtis. And gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Why don't we talk a little bit about where you all see eye to eye and why on this? And Senator Curtis, why don't you talk about your concern with access to these markets in your state of Utah?
Well, thank you. And first of all, let me say we're not banning sports betting. We're just simply putting it in the right places to be regulated. And one of those places is in the state. And as you alluded to, Utah does not allow gambling in any form. So it's one of the things that's real important to me is that we don't take this control away from Utah.
And Senator Schiff, you are concerned with what the CFTC has been doing with this. We've spoken with the CFTC chairman, Mike Selig. He does seem to be putting it out there that this is legalized and they are going to be protecting this because they say that these are futures contracts.
Well, it's interesting because I asked the chairman about this during his confirmation hearings. Did he have a position on whether these contracts were gambling or sports betting? He said he didn't, that he was a tabula rasa, that he was going to leave it to the courts. But we're seeing something very different with him actively intervening to support these prediction markets, notwithstanding that they're really indistinguishable from sports betting. And in California, we don't allow sports betting. It ought to be up to the states to decide what kind of gambling goes on within their state. This kind of end run around the law is encouraging vast amounts of gambling. We saw $1 billion of trading in prediction contracts just over the Super Bowl alone. That's something that ought to be decided state by state and not decided for them by this industry.
Is part of the problem that this revenue, even if it's legalized, if sports gambling is legalized in a state, the revenue doesn't go back to the state if it's going through these prediction markets like it might in some other situations too?
Well, I would say revenue is a piece of it, but a much larger piece is who should be regulating this, where that authority lies. I think we both feel strongly that is in the states. And going back to this prediction market and whether or not it's gambling, look, if it acts like gambling, if it talks like gambling, it is gambling, right? And that's been very clear where that belongs.
And I would add, too, in addition to the concern about revenue to the state, when it is completely unregulated like this, you could have vast amounts of insider trading, people who have particular insights either because they're government officials or because they're the athletes themselves who can end up influencing the events they're betting on. We've seen reports, for example, recently that someone with 93% accuracy has been predicting what's been going on in the Iran war. That's heavily suggestive of insider trading, and when it could be done using blockchain, there's no way to really regulate that. At least it's not being regulated today, and we want to make sure that there is regulation of this.
Kelsey took the step this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to ask what could go wrong. Imagine betting on a high school athlete getting hurt the day of a high school game, right? Like that's why this needs the appropriate regulation. You could see how wrong that could go.
The Kelsey itself took steps this week to say that or maybe it was Polymarket, took steps to say that you couldn't have politicians betting on the outcome of their elections and that you couldn't have sports athletes betting on their own sports. Is that enough, that level of self-regulation, or you all think the regulatory thrust really needs to be coming from Washington?
I don't think it's enough, because it's one thing to say this is our policy. It's another actually to put into place the steps to make sure it's not happening on those platforms. You can say athletes can't bet on themselves, but if an athlete does, how will it be caught? What if an athlete's family member does? What if a government official's colleagues or family or staff bets on insider information? It's got to be more than an aspirational statement by these companies.
Let me ask you both the big question on this, and obviously the opponents to these predictions markets are taking the fight not only through trying to influence legislators, but going through the courts too. And they have had some victories in the courts. If you want to do this, you have to pass the legislation. How much support do you have from your colleagues, both in the Senate and then in the House, if it were to make it to that point?
Well, this might be a good opportunity to use the prediction markets to bet on that. I actually think both of us feel that there's a lot of momentum on both sides of the aisle on this, and I think you're going to see further legislation, not only from us, but from our colleagues on this, to get our arms around it and make sure it's done properly.
I think that's exactly right. There's a lot of bipartisan interest and concern over this. That makes this one of those rare opportunities for the parties to get together and do something meaningful. So I'm optimistic. It shouldn't really be left to litigation. Frankly, I think the law already makes this clear, but the CFTC chairman is moving in a completely different direction of essentially unlicensed, unregulated activity here. So the Congress will need to step in.
We should point out that at CNBC, we have extended an open invitation both to Kalshi and to Polymarket to join us right here on Squawk Box. And in full disclosure, we should point out that CNBC and Kalshi do have a commercial relationship that includes a CNBC minority investment. Gentlemen, I hear how much you agree with each other on this, but obviously there's a lot of areas where you disagree too. Why don't we talk about DHS funding and where each of you stand? Do you think that we will reach an agreement soon that will begin to start paying those TSA agents who have gone without pay for almost a month now?
Listen, we were actually talking about that together before the interview started, and I think this is one of those areas where we agree on so much more than we disagree. And I think those areas of disagreement are getting narrower and narrower. And I think we all realize we've got to solve this, and I think we're all committed to figure out how to get that last little bit across the finish line.
Meaning that you think a resolution?
Right. I hope.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope that we can reach a resolution soon. But even if there are issues that are going to continue to divide us, like over ICE and Customs and Border Protection, we should make sure that TSA gets funded, that we deal with this urgent crisis at the airports. That I think we're in easy agreement on.
Total alignment, yeah.
So should I assume that we would see something maybe potentially by the end of the week if you two can sit there and figure out a potential deal?
Well, if it were up to us, we'd have it done by the end of this interview. But I know our colleagues are working hard and spending a lot of hours on this.
Let me try this with you two buddies. We're having Jim Jordan on, the congressman, in the next hour. He actually points out that the Judiciary Committee passed the Shutdown the Sanctuary Policies Act of 2026. There's 18 cities where there are sanctuary jurisdictions. In major cities, 31.5% of the population is in an area where you could have a sanctuary city where federal laws, immigration laws, are ignored. But do you think sanctuary cities are a normal part of doing business, Senator Schiff? Is that something are you in favor of sanctuary cities? Let me just ask you that.
Well, this is an issue I think John and I will probably not agree on. But people need to understand what sanctuary city means. It doesn't mean, frankly, as you're suggesting, that people are immune from the immigration laws in a sanctuary city. What it means is those cities have decided they want their law enforcement used to go after violent offenders. They don't want their law enforcement to become an arm of immigration authorities. And that's the right of every city to make that decision. How will they want to deploy their own law enforcement resources? The federal government can't simply compel local law enforcement to become ICE agents or Border Patrol agents. So that's a decision for each city to make. I respect that decision. Those communities have decided that they would rather have people come forward and report crime and be witnesses to crime, even if they're undocumented, than be afraid to and let crime proliferate. So that's a local decision, and I support it.
It makes it impossible for federal immigration officials to do their job in those cities. And
no,
we've seen what the outcome. They're not protected. You call the police, and the police won't show up to help support the. What do you think, Senator Curtis? And we wouldn't have this problem if 10 million plus illegal immigrants weren't let in during the last administration. What was the whole rationale for that, in your view?
Well, yeah, listen, I can't answer that question, but I can tell you I think this is a false narrative.
Well, they can't.
Because the false narrative is that you can't have rule of law and compassion. And I think that's what our country is built on. I know those are Utah values, and I really believe we can enforce the law, we can have rule of law, but we can also do it with compassion. I think that's where American people are a little bit uncomfortable with some of the things they've seen.
I'm not sure. So you are in favor of sanctuary cities then? Senator?
That's not what I said. I said rule of law, right? Rule of law is not a sanctuary city. But that's how you enforce the law, right, that I'm talking about.
Are you in favor of Congressman Jordan's, what he's going to be talking about? Would you vote yay on that if you got a chance?
Listen, I did in the House, by the way. I'm pretty sure we voted on that bill in the House a number of times. What you're not hearing is, yes, rule of law is important. We have to have rule of law in this country. But compassion with that rule of law is not a mutually exclusive idea.
Okay, the open border for the 4 years of the Biden administration, was that compassion?
That is not compassion. No, that's terrible. That's not compassion.
That's ignoring the rule of law, right? That's why we're in this mess right now.
That's ignoring the rule of law and ignoring compassion. It wasn't compassionate to encourage those people to come into our country undocumented and be subject to cartels garnishing their wages. It wasn't compassionate to tell them that if you come here, you can have the American dream when they can't. So that's why we're getting this wrong, right? Like, you got to understand what compassion is and what it's not.
Would you try? Do we need then to anyone who's here illegally that hasn't committed a crime, Senator Curtis? Should there be a path to citizenship? Is that what compassion means to you, or should these people not be allowed to stay?
Well, then let me ask you a question. Is there any law, any rule broken in our country where we don't have a consequence defined? So why don't we have a consequence defined when it comes to coming into this country without documentation? We continue to allow these people to be here, but we haven't defined what their consequence is.
So that's an inaction from policymakers?
Absolutely.
All right. So what would you say we need to do then? What's your answer to that? I guess is
like
it
every
amnesty
other. So first of all, you have to define amnesty. But any other crime that's committed here in our country, we define what the punishment is, and we've failed to do that in this case.
Senator Schiff, I thought I'd be arguing with you, not Senator Curtis.
Look, I think we need strong enforcement of our laws, but we also need to enforce them with compassion. And I think it is also a false choice to say, well, we can't have a strong border unless we also allow indiscriminate immigration sweeps that cause chaos in our streets like we saw in Minneapolis. We should have a strong border, but we should also make sure that our ICE agents are operating lawfully, that they're not using excessive force, that they have warrants before they go into people's homes, that they're not racially profiling people. All of those things can be true at the same time, and that's what I'm advocating.
The last two shutdowns that we've seen, one was about the expiring subsidies for pandemic era, Obamacare subsidies. This is about, I don't know, I guess you'd call it compassion in enforcing immigration laws. Do you both think that preventing funding from other things like TSA or DHS during a war, is that the way that business should be conducted in Washington, Senator Schiff? Would you want Republicans to do that to get what they wanted in the normal funding of the government?
I think that before we fund, for example, ICE agents or Customs and Border Protection, we should insist on certain safeguards, namely that they operate with the same standards we ask of a local police department. We're asking neither more nor less than a local police department. So before I approve funding for those agencies, given the abuses we have seen, given the blood we've seen in the streets, that's something I want to see happen. Now, I don't want to hold up the rest of what DHS does, so I fully have supported vote after vote. I think we've had 10 votes to fund TSA. I have supported and offered.
It's not a clean bill. It's not a clean DHA funding bill, which has been the business as usual for the way it's usually done. The business as usual right now is people getting killed in the streets. So I'm not for that business as usual. But I also don't want to see the Coast Guard funding held up or FEMA funding held up or TSA funding held up. And we should, I think, narrow down to the things we disagree and keep negotiating on that. With respect to other things, we should fund them. And I think most immediately, we need to get those TSA security people paid and address those long lines at the airports. Senator Curtis, if I spent all my time in Utah, I don't think I'd ever leave. We're just, I mean, I've never seen topography or Moab and arches, but I digress. But that is, what is a wonderland? Is that what it's called? What's it called?
I'll tell you what, I actually wish you wouldn't say that, because that's just going to bring more people to Utah. But let me just weigh in quickly on this shutdown as well. I've been here for 8 years. I've seen more shutdowns than I can count. Not a single one of them has produced the results it was intended to produce. Shutdowns are bad. We punish the wrong people, and who we should be punishing are members of Congress. Let's take our pay away until we get this done. And listen, a lot of the objectives that are trying to reach through shutdowns, whether it's Republican shutdown or Democrat shutdown, should be reached through the legislative process, not by hostage. So I'm not a fan of shutdowns. I've never seen one that's been productive or accomplished its goal. And I think we need to move on and deal with this through the legislative process.
But you just enabled the next shutdown by saying that you think things should be compassionate and that Republicans should fold. So I don't know where you stand.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
It just sounded to me like you're not in favor of the tactics that you're seeing from the Democrats right now with the ICE, with not funding ICE. But earlier it just sounded like you understood and that there should be a carve-out. So I'm not sure which would be.
Listen, I don't know how it could be more clear. Shutdowns are a terrible way to reach your objective. Right? So if that is your objective, come to the legislative table and let's get it done through the process.